Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin's incredible journey to $50,000. And I also want to go ahead and talk about some of the ETFs and the inflows and outflows of the Bitcoin spot ETFs, and as well as talking about some additional Bitcoin metrics that are very important. And then we're going to talk about the economic calendar for the week. All right, we're going to get right into it. And what I have in front of you is a long-term chart of Bitcoin, okay? We can see here on the weekly that Bitcoin has been in a very strong uptrend, a very strong up channel here, drawn in. And apart from falling below it very briefly in August, it's been almost a steady rise all the way up here to the top. And so you can see that if you extend your resistance lines a little bit, you can see that Bitcoin is bound to pass those resistance lines, specifically the one here at $50,000. Now, this has been an absolutely monumentous occasion to see Bitcoin actually push past all those previous resistance points and go past 50K. And actually, Bitcoin is kind of in rarefied air right now because normally it has not, in the past anyways, been above 50K for very long. We had a very brief period here from about February of 2021 all the way to about May, and then again back from October to about November. So altogether, maybe 6 months in total, 5 or 6 months in total, that Bitcoin has even spent above $50,000. And it really shouldn't come as any sort of surprise. As we've talked about multiple times in this channel, the incredible demand that we've seen from the Bitcoin spot ETFs has pushed Bitcoin even higher into that next level and has driven new money into the market. And as a result, Bitcoin has pushed higher and higher and higher. Now you can see here on the weekly, we check the RSI, we're at 78, and we're now overbought on the weekly. So buyers seem to be gaining some pretty extreme momentum, and I think that momentum is going to carry us even higher. So I want to go ahead and also zoom in here a little bit and talk about what happened today. So we're going to get rid of these, and we're going to go here into the hourly. Now, Bitcoin previously we had seen was kind of testing support here at about 48K. And then today we just saw huge whales come in and buy and push Bitcoin even higher. It went first through 49 and then actually through 50 for a little bit and then came back down again. So now what we're looking at is most likely we're going to have 49K become our new support level. So I'm going to move this down just a little bit and push this to blue. So now we have our new support here. So Bitcoin, new support here at about 49K, new resistance level still at about 50 or so. And we're going to see in the futures contracts how this actually happened. If we go here to our futures contracts, we can see that we had a very large amount of long liquidations earlier today. In fact, about 10 million here for this hour, 24 million for this hour, and about another 10 million or so for this hour. So we're just seeing some pretty massive short liquidations to push the price even higher. And quite frankly, we've seen on the other side of that, we've seen an extension of the number of bulls coming in and buying long for these futures contracts. We've seen this the funding rates actually move up much higher, showing that longs are paying more money to shorts in order to maintain their position, and open interest has been rising. So that clearly means here that we're seeing a large amount of longs come into the space. There's been a lot of bullish bets right now for Bitcoin, and the price has been moving higher and higher and higher. Now, the reason for this is what we've been talking all along, and that's the Bitcoin spot ETFs. But I want to draw to your attention how incredibly important this has been with the spot ETFs. If we go over here to this post by James Butterfill and Medium, he actually lays out the inflows and outflows for the spot ETFs. And we can see here that Grayscale, the GBTC, has actually seen from basically year to date outflows here of about $6.3 billion in outflows from GBTC. Now, those flows have largely gone to both the IBIT or the iShares ETF and Fidelity ETF here, both having well over $3 billion of inflows. Okay, so we've seen just a huge amount of inflows. And again, if you add up all the outflows and all the inflows, you have a bottom line here of about $2.7 billion worth of demand coming into these funds. Okay, you cannot underscore how incredibly important this is. This $2.7 billion drove Bitcoin all the way from the point in which they were, let me zoom out here, from the point in which the ETFs were previously up here approved. Okay, they drove Bitcoin all the way from about 41K all the way up to about 50. So you saw that this whole move right here has been largely because of these spot ETFs. And I think, honestly, we're just getting started here. We're going to most likely wind up seeing an even larger acceleration of people going into buying these new assets as a way for them to get exposure to Bitcoin without having to actually custody them. Now, one of the reasons why people have been selling Bitcoin or GBTC so hard here is because if you go ahead and take a look at GBTC, their expense ratio or the price you're paying to buy this ETF is 1.5%. So that 1.5% compared to something like an IBIT sits at 0.12%. I mean, it's not even anywhere close. I mean, they should basically be about the same products here, but for one, you're paying drastically more in the case of GBTC compared to IBIT, in which you're paying drastically less for the same product. And so it's not surprising that people are actually taking their money out of GBTC and going and buying IBIT as well. But then in addition to that, we also have the stories that we've talked about earlier with FTX, and then now we're going to be talking about the $1.4 billion worth of sales potentially coming from Genesis as well. We could even see more money exit GBTC and go to like an IBIT or an ARK or the Fidelity BTC. It's very possible, and considering the expense ratios are much lower, I would say that that's very likely. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at our exchange reserve, we can see here that exchange reserve continues to move down, even though we've seen such incredible demand over the past month. We had seen a little bit of a tick up, and this has largely been because of miners and miners selling. We can see here the miners reserve, the number of miners, the coins in miners wallets that kept ticking down. They kept selling and selling and selling more Bitcoin in order to feed the demand. But now we're actually starting to see more of an equalization. And in fact, it's starting to dip down below again. I think it's only a matter of time before we wind up seeing a new bottom for the exchange reserves. Right now, that would be a move under about 2,064,000 or so Bitcoin, or 2,064,000 Bitcoin or so. So a move under that level, probably under 2 million, I would say, is a likely possibility we're going to be seeing here in the coming months. And there's going to be even less Bitcoin to go around as soon as the halving happens and those rewards are cut in half. All right. So I also want to go ahead and point out the fact that if we take a look at our NUPL levels or the net unrealized profit loss, we can see here that 52% of holders right now are in profit. 52%. Now, this is a region we haven't seen in quite some time. The only time it's really ever been higher is during the basically the top of the bull market for Bitcoin. But the fact that 52%, I mean, if you had bought basically at any point in the last year and would have held, you'd be in profits right now. It's not really difficult to see how we actually have such a high amount of people in profit. If anything, it's also kind of surprising that it isn't a little bit higher, but I think that's because we had a significant amount of buying during the last bull market tops as well. Now, as for the actual Bitcoin network data that I want to talk about, I specifically want to highlight the hash rate. The hash rate continues to climb even higher for Bitcoin. Now we're actually hit about a peak of almost 600 exahashes per second. And there just continues to be stronger and stronger and stronger demand for Bitcoin on the blockchain. Miners are bringing more rigs online, and those rigs are going to have to be more efficient in order for them to survive the next halving that's going to be coming up here in the next couple of months. Now, I also want to go ahead and talk about what's going on this week for our economic reports. Now, Monday, we had some Fed speakers, not a big deal there. But tomorrow, we have here core CPI and CPI year over year. Okay, so those are going to be released at 8:30 in the morning. And the expectation here is that it's going to be lower. It's going to be a lot lower. And especially with your CPI year over year, they're actually expecting a two-handle, 2.9%. That's the expectation, under 3%. And let me tell you something. If we did see under 3%, that would be tremendously bullish. Even though they're expecting 2.9%, things would go crazy. We'd have the markets would go up, Bitcoin would go up, crypto would go up, because quite frankly, it shows that inflation is under control and moving lower. That's what we want to see. However, if we come in with a three handle, then we could always wind up seeing everything move much lower in response because essentially you didn't beat the median forecast. In fact, it's coming in much higher than expected, which would not be a good sign. Core CPI year over year expected to be 3.7%, previous 3.9%. Again, this core CPI number, this is really important. It excludes food and gas and things like that. But this is going to be what I'm going to be paying attention to tomorrow, the CPI. Wednesday, you have Fed chair speaking. Thursday, you have jobless claims, okay? And you also have some Fed president speaking as well. And then Friday, you have those PPI numbers, okay? So the producer price index, we'll be watching those, especially to see how those numbers come in. Expect some major volatility this week. Every single week that we have PPI and CPI numbers, expect extreme volatility. But either way, Bitcoin is going to be well set up, and especially with how much bullish momentum we've seen over the past couple of days, it's going to take a little while for this train to slow down. Okay, it has so much inertia behind it, and I do think that we're going to wind up seeing, definitely before the end of the year, a new all-time high. So let's move above 69K. All right, so let me know what you guys think. Put your comments below, and let me know if you think that we're going to wind up seeing a new all-time high before the end of the year, maybe before the halving. I don't think that's likely, but I'm curious to hear about what you guys' price targets are for Bitcoin by the end of the year, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.